Hello, it's Tuesday, tea at 2, December 2nd, and we're going to have a guest today, one of my long-term dyers that's been on Pearl for a very long time, Leann Ross, and she is with Forbidden, and I'm going to bring her on in just a minute. I'm just going to tell her, I'm going to just share a few things. Oh, I forgot to get the picture. Oh, well. Anyway, she's been on the bus from the very beginning, and I have had so much fun over the years getting to know her and meeting her mom and just having a great time with her. So I am actually going to show you some things, and we're going to talk about what she's got going on. So I'm going to pull her on in just a second. I'll go ahead and do it now because I'll talk about our tea in just a second. So hold on. Let's see. I gotcha. Looks like the blind me, not sure. Hold on, guys. I did accept her. Let's see if it comes. Yeah, I think there she is. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. So you're knitting something, I
I'm
see.
working on my event project.
That's awesome. Well, I was going to tell everybody a little bit about what the tea part was today, and then we can kind of start. So today is just about uh, the tea, a little gadget I found when I went to a tea shop in Lawrenceville not too long ago. And I'm going to bend it down and hope that I don't lose the camera. But it's this little cute thing that actually holds the pot and keeps it warm. So it takes a tea light in the middle, and it doesn't make the handle hot, just keeps the tea warm. So you can get the warmer online with Amazon, and then IKEA is the one that has like a 2-inch tea light that you can use instead of the little ones. And it's really nice. It works really well. So, and I just made a pot of my favorite, Earl Grey, today because it's cold out here, and it will soothe me while I'm sitting here. And I'm going to do some knitting after this, so I'm excited. So let's see. So what are you knitting on, Miss Leann?
So I am knitting from my Advent box. I'm just kind of up. I don't think, wait, hang on. Yes, I've revealed this color. So I'm just sewing it up as I go.
That
So,
looks great. So
so you'll
for
get
those
the,
of you who don't know, Leann is Forbidden Fiber Company. You've always been that name, right? No
I,
other name.
I was forbidden woolery, but it's always been forbidden.
Okay, fantastic. And some of you may know her that are joining today, and some may not. But you're still, where are you located now? Are you still?
We are in Covington, Tennessee. We moved, we were in Brighton, which is about 7 minutes closer to Memphis than we are now, but now we're in.
Okay. So you have a new store.
Yes, we
So
have a whole.
what's the difference from the other one?
Our old one was approximately 3,500 square feet, and our new one is approximately 11,500. So
And
it's really nice. I actually have an office, whereas before, like I wouldn't even have had a place to do an Instagram live because we were all just working together in the same room.
right.
And like oodles and oodles of dyeing space and place to organize things, which is amazing because we were in our old studio, we were drying fabric for our cross stitch stuff in our what was supposed to be our retail space. So when we had people come shop, we'd have to move drying racks around and stuff like that. And so now we actually have a dedicated dry space. We have a dedicated dye space. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, somebody is asking about, so you have a brick and mortar store. It's open to the public, right?
We are not a full service yarn shop. We don't do what Angie does. She's amazing. We are open business hours. So we're usually open 8 to 2 and then by appointment.
Okay, that's fantastic. So they can reach out to you and then kind of come and see what you have dyed up and what's available exactly
Yeah,
at that point.
that's
But you have a huge online, if I'm not mistaken. So you're always adding to that, and I know you ship don't you ship everywhere?
we do.
Okay.
Yes. I have because I've been seeing a lot of things about new EU rules, so I just have to double check that we're allowed to ship there still. But yeah, we ship everywhere.
Yeah, I know that Canada's having an issue with you have
Yeah.
to use UPS right now. So no, I haven't jumped to that. I want to, but I haven't done it yet. So but
UPS charges
anyway,
Canada, so we are currently not shipping to Canada.
okay. Okay, that's fantastic to keep that up and noticed. But so for those that don't know, I know know your story, but give us a little update of, where Forbidden came from and you know, what got you dying.
So I usually start with my mom's craft store when I was little. When I was, gosh, 3 or 4 years old, she opened a craft store in Poway, California, which is a little town in San Diego. And so that's kind of where I learned how to craft. I learned how to knit and crochet and cross stitch and toll paint, which I don't think is a thing anymore, but all these things just at these classes that she used to have at her shop. So I've kind of always known how to do all of that. And then she sold the shop and went to work for a distributor and became a salesperson of craft supplies. And so it's kind of just always been around ever since I was little. And my mom is also extremely crafty. She knits and crochets and sews, and she can sew anything.
Yeah,
And
she's wonderful. I love your mom.
I know she's awesome. Uh, so when I was in my 20s, I got married and my husband was working a lot and he is also works in an artistic industry and he when he wasn't working he was building his portfolio and so I picked up knitting again. I needed something to pass my time. We lived in New Jersey where we didn't know anybody, so I needed something to pass the time while he was working and I started knitting again. I actually randomly turned on the TV and found Nitty Gritty with Vicky Howell.
Oh yeah.
I started searching online, and this was pre-Ravelry. So I found all these knitting blogs, and then it was actually Harry Potter stuff where people were making the sweaters and the scarves and all that. And I was like, I want to make that. And then Ravelry came along, and it just opened up amazing things. And that's where I learned how to spin I learned how to spin in one of the forums there, and I got a bonus 1 month and got my husband put together, like I bought a spinning wheel and he put it all together for me and I learned how to spin. And that's where I found out about hand dyed combed top.
Ah.
And, and I looked and I was like, I can do that. Of course, right? And I bought a learn to dye kit. I bought some roving and I spread it all out on my kitchen table and I learned how to dye.
That's amazing. I mean, that's one area I've tried spinning. I like it. I'm doing the e-spinner. And then I went and learned on my flatbed this weekend. I like that. I have a lot more to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But I've dyed some yarn before, but I'm going to leave that to you and all the other wonderful dyers. It's just something about the colors, putting them together in that form is totally different than taking the finished product and putting colors together. So it takes a special person to be able to do that. And I know that you are that, and you are also a little scientific too, aren't you? You've got that brain that puts it all together and uses the little, to the inch, to the whatever you call it, ounce, however much you put in. So I love it.
But very it's just like knitting. I mean, knitting and crochet are also very math oriented. So, but dyeing very much is so. And there's a lot of color theory that goes into it. And I really enjoy all that. I never, I've crafted my whole life, but I never would have considered myself an artistic person until I started dyeing. And then I started learning about color theory. And it's not like I never knew red and blue make purple,
Right.
but adding in the math where it's like, well, if I use 3 parts red and 1 part blue, what kind of purple do I get compared to 1 part, whatever. I think I said the same exact thing twice, just in a different order. But uh, that is where it really clicked for me. And it wasn't until I had two things happen where color clicked for me. One,
Mm-hmm.
I had to give up some of my OCD tendencies because when I started dyeing, hand painting with clearly defined stripes of color was extremely popular with very brightly colored, very, very, very variegated colors. And that doesn't work for my brain because my OCD says there is a line and it cannot cross. And so when colors together, it would drive me crazy. So I had to go to the complete opposite end where I purposely let colors bleed together. And I started doing more kettle dyeing and laying colors on top of each other as opposed to mixing them together in powder form. I mixed them together in the water on the yarn. And that's kind of what clicked for me. And then the second thing was as opposed to buying every color of dye that a dye company offered, I only bought primary colors and I mixed everything myself. So,
Okay.
with the exception of brown. I cannot mix brown to save my life. So I buy brown. But everything else I mix from primaries, and that really is where the math came in for me, where I was able to put it all together. And um, one of the things my husband and I talk about is the fact that most people are either artistic or you're logical. And in both of our jobs, we both need both.
Right.
And the reasons why we click so well together is because we both see the artistic side as well as the mathematical side. And so
Do you
it works.
still do that dyeing the same way, making your colors from
I
primary?
do.
So that hasn't changed. Wow.
Look,
That's unique, isn't that? I mean, I
um,
think that's
I don't know. I think from primaries, yes, but I do talk to more and more dyers who do mix their own colors, but as opposed to only mixing from primaries, they will mix, they'll get this green and they'll mix them together and get a separate green. Whereas if I want another green, I'll find a new way to mix blue and yellow.
okay.
And
Okay.
it gets where it gets the most complicated is a color. Like I don't know if you carry Archangel's wings in your shop, but it's a
I had
really like,
something.
yeah. So that color I mix a purple and then I mix a yellow and then I mix them together and then I take that color and then I mix it with some gray and then I dilute that down and that's how I get Archangel's wings. So it's those colors where I feel like I've gone a little too deep and it gets a little
And
scary.
what color is Archangel? Isn't it a cream?
It's a cream color, yeah.
Yeah, that's you just said nothing that would end up being cream.
Well, purple,
And I was checking you because I was like, I thought that was cream.
yeah, purple and yellow are opposites on the color wheel, so they make brown. And then I gray it out by adding the silver gray. And then you dilute it way down because cream is essentially a very light brown or yellow.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
It's
It's,
fun, nerdy, and I love it.
I've been seeing these decks of cards coming out now about, what I guess they're just show you what colors go with each. And I thought, oh, that looks like fun to pull out those. But then I thought, oh, that's just probably something else. I don't need to go down that rabbit hole. So, but it looked kind of cool. But I guess I haven't studied a color wheel as much as I probably should. But I think that's pretty cool. Now, what about, do you still use vinegar?
Yes, I do.
See,
The Oh, go ahead.
no, that's different.
The reason why I use vinegar is because most of my friends who are dyers who use citric acid say that they have trouble with it burning stellina. And since my sparkle yarn has always been my most popular, And because I cook yarn for a very long time, there are a lot of dyers will, put the yarn or put the color on the yarn and then they'll put it in a warming oven. But I don't use a warming oven. I actually cook them on stoves because I layer so many colors over the top. And I'm not just pouring colors on. I actually lift yarn out, put a new color in, and put it back in a variety of different ways to get the color on the yarn in different places. And because I do it that way, taking pans in and out of a warming oven would be a lot of extra work. So I just cook them on the stove. And because of that, I've never wanted to dive into citric acid because I'm afraid to burn my stellina. And then also, I don't want to use citric acid for my other bases and vinegar for my stellina because then that's just too many processes. And so I've just always stuck to vinegar.
I think not, like I said, that's a unique situation. I remember I tell people that all the time. So I try to know a little bit about my dyers, and enough to make it, to tell the difference and interesting little facts about it. But I gotta brag on the one that I love the most. And you've told me it's layering 3 times or something, or not layering, turning it. I
Uh,
think you told me one time. But mountain pose.
yes, that one has
I
five.
forget the label.
It's one of my most layered colors because your paint is so pretty. I had to put all the colors in there.
I know, and I lost the painting, found the painting. Now I've misplaced it again, so I give up. But after this today, I'm gonna try to tag the. I do have a picture of it, so I'll tag the picture so people can see. But this is Mountain Pose. Let me take the tag off. I like the new labels but I am forever tearing them because I'm shoving them into a thing. But look at this is the Stellina, and it is. I think I sell more of the this than I do of the regular. So this is Pride, but this is called Mountain Pose. And for those of you who aren't aware, because of my name, this was the very first exclusive cover color I ever had. And I had just done a little watercolor picture of a mountain scene, and I was asked, and I just said, "Oh, well, I have no idea. Let's give her this." And we named it Mountain Pose because of yoga. But this is the gluttony sock, so this doesn't have the stellina in it, but it's so pretty. But you see the purples, the greens, the pinks, and I'm wearing a shawl and I wrote it down, Delphinia from Amba, but it's got ballet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's why I keep buying ballet. Uh, what's it called? Ballet boss, right? I think
Yes.
so. Anyway, I always buy it because it really goes well with this. But there's other purples and some greens I have found that work well too. And the teal, you see the teal in there, turquoise.
Mhm.
So, but this is God, this one's old, but I love it. But you can see the colors, and so you do layer a lot on these, and I always get a lot at one time because I know but she probably doesn't care because you probably don't want all that at one time because you're turning it constantly.
No, dyeing stove's worth of one color is a lot easier than dyeing like one pan of every color at one time.
Yeah, yes. I
So
I just I try to get I always have it in stock. I always have it. So it is on my website if anyone is interested, but it's under Pride and Gluttony Sock, I think is how it is. But that's Mountain Pose. So I have it so much. Someone's asking why are her yarn bases so different compared to other dyers. I love the Stellina base. So
um I work with a mill direct. I do use the same supplier as a lot of American dyers use. I do. There are lots now. When I first started dyeing, there was only one supplier in the US. And then I found a mill in Canada because I was looking to create a custom base, which is my Proverbs cotton linen blend. And it was when I was was dying in California and I ran into a lot of people who didn't want to work with wool, whether they were allergic or they were vegan or it's just too hot. And so I was looking for a mill to make a cotton linen blend for me. And I found this mill in Canada, and it turned out that they were just diving into supplying yarn to dyers. They previously only spun the very, very thin yarns to send to clothing companies to like actually weave fabric out of. And so I met the salesperson, the owner of the company, at I think Stitches West, and I handed him a skein of my Stellina base at the time, and I said, I want this, but I want to make these changes to it, but I want it to stay this weight because I want them to be able to mix. And so he took it back to Canada and he took it back to the mill and they pulled it apart and studied it. And he's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And he said, this has 5% Stellina, but we're going to put 10% Stellina in it. And then I wanted a 3-ply yarn because the base that most dyers use that are Stellina are only 2 plies. And I am a sweater knitter at heart. I love cables. I love all of that. And a 3-ply yarn is rounder than a 2-ply yarn. And so it does that detail, the stitch, it just has better definition and stitch
Ah,
definition than a 2-ply yarn. And it also is stronger for socks. So he did a sample, he sent it to me, I knit with it. I'm like, this is it, I love it, let's do it. And then I have slowly transitioned a lot of my bases that I loved from that other supplier to his mill and had him just tweak it just a little bit for me so that it was mine.
wow. I love that story because I do think you're still in, but you said it's more, but I always think it's just the right amount. It's not overdone. You know what I mean? So
It looks
that's why I like it.
it looks like a lot more sparkle in the skein than it actually ends up being when you knit it out. And that's why I love it because it's kind of stealth. Like
Yes,
you think it's gonna be too ostentatious, but it's just right.
that's exactly the way I think about it because you know, I didn't, I just, I, so I love it. I mean, and everybody does because it's just the right amounts. Because what I've got in here is I used the Stellina in the mountain pose, but not the ballet. So I mixed it, but you can't tell until it hits the sunlight or something comes up and then it starts to sparkle. So you can play around with that a little bit. So I meant to tell everybody to please put your questions um, in the chat box or whatever it's called, the comment box, and we can ask Leann. So what else, what have you got going on? So you did your um, Advent box, and you always have an interesting one. So you always come up with these. So where do you, that's the one thing that people don't. Where do you come up with your
Oh
names and
gosh.
and then your idea? I mean, where do you draw your inspiration from?
Naming things is my biggest challenge ever. I can come up with 1,000 different colors, but if you ask me to name them, I'm gonna cry. So,
Ah,
and honestly, that's the reason why when I very first started dyeing, I named a lot of things after fandom because I love to read, I love movies, I hate naming colors, so I used things from movies and books and stuff. But you also run into licensing issues. So I've kind of pulled away from that and tried to be a little more creative when it comes to naming things after fandoms. Um, but I really do draw inspiration from my favorite things, whether it's gardening or books or movies or whatever. That is where I draw inspiration from. And so I have to find ways to make sure I am doing things legally. But
correct.
our advent this year was called Reindeer Games as opposed to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer because Rudolph is very heavily trademarked. And so, but reindeer aren't. So we did not you can't even use a reindeer with a red nose on
Oh,
anything. It's
oh wow.
so that's why we called it Reindeer Games, and all of our branding for it had I think it was actually a goat.
I, Yeah, we don't want to play around with that. So we've done that, been there, done that. So, but I still see it going on all the time. So it's like,
Judgment for other people. I
yeah.
just, I first and foremost, I have a staff to take care of, and I have to take care of them, and I slip up every now and then. I get lazy every now and then, and I don't. I use something that is trademarked, and I usually get put back in my place by Reddit or someone somewhere, and so I pull it back again. But
Do you have
yeah,
to go out and look? Is there a certain place to look, or you just when you
or
for a trademark name? I mean, because sometimes you might not think it would be.
yes, so there is a trademark database that the government runs.
Oh,
And so I usually will go search it there. And a lot of times something will be trademarked for a clothing brand or for a video game or for a wine. I come across a lot of winery names. So in that sense, it's not specifically trademarked for anything in our industry. And so I will be a little more lenient in using those names. But you know, anything that's Disney, I try to go back to the original source material because generally speaking, Disney's renditions of things came from somewhere.
mm-hmm.
So I'll use the original source material that is public domain and use names from that instead. So
Okay.
uh like our villains collection. Um, we have Dark Mistress. You know, she wasn't even named in the original fairy tale by Grimm. She was,
Uh-huh.
I can't even remember off the top of my head because I'm nervous, so things aren't flowing. But uh
I'd be nervous with me.
so they call her a dark elf and things like that. And we're like, well, we can't call her a dark elf because again, that's what Disney calls her. So we called her dark.
Ah,
It was something in the original story that kind of just fit it together.
okay.
Um, and things like that. Or like Sea Witch was Ursula because in the original Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale, she was a sea witch. So that's what we
Oh,
called her.
wow. Wow.
Or like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, he was Vain Hunter because that's what he was.
Interesting. You don't think about having all that to do,
you know,
you know? I don't think about naming either. So I,
yeah.
I've
Others,
tried, but mm-mm.
my other secret is when all else fails and it's not related to a fandom or anything like that. And this is particularly on the cross stitch side. I go to the Sherwin-Williams website and I look up paint colors.
Okay, that works. Well, speaking of which, that's another thing that you've got going. It's a cross stitch, and you do it cotton, right? Is that right or wrong?
That's
Okay,
correct. We do a cotton. I would love to dye on silk. It's really popular in the cross stitch industry. I just haven't found the right supplier yet.
okay. So that's something that may come along.
Find a good supplier, yeah, because I can actually use my yarn dyes on silk, and I could actually recreate yarn colorways on embroidery floss, and that's something that I get asked for a lot. And so I would really love to be able to do it. And I came this close this year to having a supplier, and it fell through. So I'm working on it.
Hmm. Yeah, I do a little. I just picked up a needlepoint and just do the little small, easy,
Hmm.
basic. But the lady who taught me always said, if you can, try to get silk. And I thought, okay, well, but the other is much more in my budget, but but that's okay. So um, I'll go back and forth. I actually got something that they kitted for me. It was a kit, and it was a mixture of things. So, and it looked like it was going to be above my. I'm not going to do all the fancy stitches, so I'm just going to do the basic. But I think that's pretty cool though. I've got to finish. But yeah, so that's how I knew about it. Only that because I DMC or that cotton is all I've ever used in the past. Um, so that's pretty good. So that'll be fun to have something. And what makes you, I mean, what do you do, look in a supplier? What are your main, what do you look for?
Availability is percent.
Okay. so that they can get it to you in a timely fashion.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like to
Okay.
have different as much as possible, but cotton embroidery floss is cotton embroidery
Right.
floss for the most part.
But
But
there's all kinds of cotton.
yeah, it's not entirely true. There are differences, but yeah, I look for someone who has available what I need at the right price and a price that I can then turn around and feel like I'm not bringing something egregiously priced to the market. I like things to be affordable, so
Right.
possible in a handmade industry.
Yeah. Well, everything seems to have gone up a little bit over the last couple of years. So, um,
I, I've
but
tried,
now,
oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna say I've tried to keep my yarn prices as steady as possible.
You
Um,
have.
we'll see how the next year goes or so, but yeah, it's definitely something I always look at. I always try to absorb as much of cost increases as I can and only pass them on once. I just can't. Like I said, foremost, my responsibility is to my employees. So once I can't take care of them, I have to raise my prices.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's interesting though. Like I haven't seen that much, a dollar here, a dollar there, um, over the last year or so, which I expect that there might be some more coming down the line, but who knows? Never know what's going to happen. But so I've still got, well, I haven't really the villain series. So, I didn't put it out as early as I wanted. And of course, I lost a few shows due to Helene. But so I'm going to do a sample. But I see those villain series, and I'm sorry I don't have any of those, but I was seeing them as a fade. Is that more what you were trying to do, or is it a separate situation?
Like within each villain or across
Yeah, like I bought the red and the black, the villain.
you, right? Gaston.
Where?
Gaston is the red and the black. So you must
Yeah,
have.
red and black, and then it came the teal with the red and the
Oh,
black, and
you got Cruella.
yes, I didn't know if I could say Cruella. I guess I was worried about it, but yes, I got Cruella.
Devil Woman.
Yes. Oh, and I love it. But I haven't figured out what I want to do because I don't know if I want one shawl that's just going to fade or if I want to do like a three color shawl. What do you think would be best?
Oh gosh, you could go either way. So the original intent behind the way I dyed them is that I wanted a semi-solid to be the character, to represent the character. So every semi-solid is going to be like Devil Woman or Vain Hunter or Dark Mistress. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do something that they kind of say or something that represents them or some part of the story. And then I also have like a location
Okay.
for the most part. It's not always true because again, naming things is hard. So with Cruella, she has Devil Woman, and then she has uh, uh
I can't remember.
Destroy is something that she says,
Okay.
and then I'm 100% blanking on the third colorway. Um, so anyway, the idea was that you have a semi-solid, you have a variegated, and then you have a speckle. So that you could really do anything you wanted to. You could fade, you could do a three-color shawl, because my favorite thing to do is a three-color shawl is take a variegated and a semi-solid and stripe them
Mm-hmm.
together. A little bit of lace. And Amber O'Brien is really good at it. So you could stripe the variegated and the semi-solid, and then you could use the speckle for her lace portions.
Okay. Yeah, I love Ambus patterns, so I definitely am going to look at that. Okay, I've got one in mind. You told me one, and then I went and searched on the just to look. We have a question, and this question is kind of cool because I never noticed it for 5 years. So she is saying you get 114 grams. I say she has 113 on here. Um, other than 100 grams. Have you always put that on there?
Yes. So, well, um, the bases that I get milled specifically for us come on 4 ounce skeins, which is 113, 114
Okay.
grams, as opposed to my other supplier does things in 100 grams. So that's why the 495 yards on it is because it's 4 ounces as opposed to 100 grams.
Okay. And Stellene and Pride is a little bit lighter.
Yes, Pride is a little bit lighter weight than Gluttony Sock. Gluttony Sock is more of a heavy fingering weight.
Okay.
And also,
But you could still mix the two for a shawl, right?
yes, you can. The thing that I love about Gluttony, which I have Gluttony Sock and I also do Gluttony worsted, is that it is very lofty because it's an 8-ply yarn, but it's 4 2-ply yarns plied together. So it's chain plied.
That's a gluttony.
Yes, it makes it so if you untwist it, you can
Mm-hmm.
tie yarns in there or string. So it makes it bouncier. And again, it gives a better stitch definition.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit thicker of a yarn. And I've actually used it for a sport weight before.
That's what I thought. It's more, it could go
Yeah,
there. I just found these colors in here. So you never know what's inside that twist.
the Gluttony worsted base, I'm actually using it as an Aran weight right now in a sweater that I'm knitting.
How are
So
you doing that? Holding two together?
no, it's just because it's so lofty because of that extra bounce it gets from the chain plying. It just you can knit it up.
You, you got gauge with that?
I did.
Okay, you have to you don't share or do I miss them? I try to check all your posts, but do you share some of the things you make?
I share them a lot more in my stories.
Okay. Okay.
Trying to be better about sharing on my grid. My
Yeah.
I have this OCD thing again, where I feel like it's been so hammered into me by all of the Instagram. This is what you need to do to be successful on Instagram. I feel like my grid has to be picture perfect. And so I hesitate from sharing. Let me just take a picture of this thing on my bed and let me share it on Instagram. I have a really hard time, my perfectionism and my OCD. I can't. So I'll share it in my stories a lot.
Okay. Okay. So I'm not OCD, I'm ADD. So I'm the one taking the picture on the bed, just getting it out there.
For
Um,
that.
yeah, you know, I strive to have picture perfect things. And you have them, Flynn Knit has them. I'm trying to think others that well, everybody else but me. Um, but I do have somebody that does my post, and you can tell the difference right away. But she doesn't have any of my samples or anything like that. But I strive to have that. I don't think I have that knack either because I've tried to do it and it looks like I put a thing on there and a little basket there and it just doesn't look good.
It's
So um,
it's better
not the same.
mind. It's better that you just don't do it because it's a lot of pressure. And I wish I had never gone down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, because I don't think I've seen a lot that you've done. I have to pay attention. I don't think I do see your stories,
Yeah,
but
I'm I don't I'm not like right now I'm posting my Advent project every day. I'm doing that in a reel though. I'm not doing that in my grid. But I try. I'm trying to be better about it. It's one of my main goals for next year for sure. Because honestly, for a long time because um that's why I got into cross stitches. I spent a year knitting a wedding dress to go down the run and it went down one time and then the world closed down and it kind of just sat in my studio and I was just so tired of knitting in my hands. I got a lot of hand pain right in here.
yeah.
Yes. And so I stopped knitting for a long time and I would only knit if I was like designing something like the sheep punk patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Knitting I did for a really long time or designing something for a box. And I just really only got back into it this past year. And I started knitting sweaters again, which like I said, I'm a sweater knitter at heart. And so knitting shawls for work for so long had kind of burned me out, and I just don't enjoy knitting shawls like I used to. But when I first started, it was novel and it was like, wow, I can finish this project so quickly because I'm not knitting a big sweater. But after, I don't know, 6 or 7 years of it, it just became work. And so I started cross stitching instead. And now I'm just getting back into it. And so I'm getting to the point where I can share it. And
Okay, good.
I,
Well, do you speaking of which, I found a cow that I did. I was test knitting it, but it's this big, and I got it done in 2 days. And I was like, "Oh wow, this is going to be my new go-to," because it was in DK too. I said, "Oh, then I can at least think I'm doing something because otherwise I've got six, whips going right now trying to get things done before March." So, that's I still am looking for sample knitters. It's still kind of hard to find those. But is your mom doing any?
he has not been knitting anything for me right now because we don't have any shows coming up, but she's about to get put back to work because we have Nash Yarn Fest in
Yeah.
March, and I'm doing a whole
Yep.
new for Nash Yarn Fest. So I'm gonna be putting her to work.
You doing this? What are you doing?
I'm doing a new collection, a brand new collection that I'm gonna introduce leading up to Nash Yarn Fest, and then it'll be there in person. And so that means I need her to make samples for me because I like to have samples of my yarn.
Yes, and then I'll be walking around after the show and grabbing some of that to take back home. But hopefully it's all gone.
You know, I always try to bring so much that if I didn't bring anything home with me, it would pretty much be a miracle. So
Well, that's what I like. I love is that I go out, I'm at some shows and I'm out in the neighborhoods and I'm out at a retreat. So I may have some colors that, retired a little while ago or not around, but that's okay because it's still beautiful yarn. And you never know when somebody needs a skein of a certain color that I may still have. So I it's just it never gets tiring. It's beautiful. So I snag some of the villain and but you pump some money out. I can't keep up with it. So
I can
I don't,
pop the
that is your OCD, isn't it? No, that's ADD.
I'm trying to slow down a little bit, um, just because it does get a little tiring to put something new out every week. But sometimes, like right now, I have three things in my head. I'm like, I need to put them out now because they're in my head and they need to come out. And so there are some times where I really struggle with not with waiting.
I know.
Yeah.
I come up with some good ideas and I wait too long and then, I miss and I get mad at myself because, I should have done it. But I'm trying to work on that for next year myself. So ideas don't just come in my head for a reason. I've got to make them work. So, but like I said, I do try to look what you've got coming up because it's always so pretty. And so that's your big show. Is that the first show you're doing next year?
For yarn, yes. So next year, right now, I do the wholesale cross stitch show every year in March in Nashville. And then we're
Okay.
in at the end of March for Nash Yarn Fest. And then at the beginning of May, I get to go back to H&H or go to H&H for the first time, which I haven't been able to do a wholesale yarn show since 2019.
I'll be
And
there
really,
too.
yay!
Yes. Who's going with you?
Uh, Probably my mom.
Okay.
So I'm really excited about that. It's at the, in obviously in 2020 and 2021, they didn't have it. And then in 2022, it switched from TNNA to H&H. And H. And I really wanted to go, but they scheduled it over my youngest daughter's birthday. And
Ah.
I miss a lot of things having to travel. And that's been my line is like, I will not travel on one of my kids' birthdays. And that was 22 and 23. And then, no, no, 21 and 22. I don't know. And then last year, yeah, I was going to do it last year and I was all ready to hit the register button. And it was the same weekend as Noelle, my older daughter, her school play.
Oh, okay. Now, are you going to
That was this year.
are you gonna display or what was I thinking? Be a vendor or okay, so you're going to be there. Okay. And okay, great. That's good. I saw some of the vendors. I think they already have them up. I don't know. Sometimes it's last year's stuff on there, but I looked, but I already booked my plane and my hotel, so that way I wouldn't back out of it.
If you go by the number of calls I have gotten from people trying to scam me into making a hotel reservation with them or buying a attendee list, then they've posted the vendor list.
Okay. Okay, I thought they did because there's quite a few. I'm excited because I've never gone either, and I think there's several people I know that are going, so that's going to be really. And I've got a couple of other, I don't know, a couple of other vendors I know are going to be there, so that's going to be fun. So, woo! And you're going to have a new, you're going to have a new colors there. What are you
I
going to
don't,
do? Bring what you? How do you do that? What do you do at a wholesale show? Do you bring yarn or just samples?
in the past, I have brought yarn for cash and carry so that shops can actually go home with some yarn to show everybody because that's exciting. This time I could not because H&H is a very expensive show to vend at
Okay.
and take orders.
Okay.
And
Okay.
somebody pre-orders something and then I can dye it up beforehand and, you know.
Get it there. Okay. Well, that's good. That's awesome
Yeah,
that you're
I'm
going to be there.
really excited. It's been a long time and I miss that side of things. Working with yarn shops like yours are like it's a whole different side of my creativity
Hmm.
because you're a creative person and you have ideas and then we get to talk and then I get excited about things and it's just it's amazing.
That's right. It works really nice. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with anyone, everyone? Anything
I'm
that you haven't talked about?
um not that I can think of.
No. Well, I know that you'll be at SAF again this year.
Yes.
And are you going to Vicksburg?
I might attend, but it's the weekend before the Nashville wholesale needle.
Yes.
And so I can't vend there, which I'm really sad about because I talked to Judy for a long time about please move it. And she finally moves it. And I'm like, she actually asked me, she's like, can you go now? I was like, no.
Yeah, I wanted to go, but I think I've drawn the line at 6 hours. So, um, it's just no. I've kind of I did a lot this last year to see what my breaking point would be or what makes. And 4 hours is probably maybe five, but that's going to be the. So going to Tennessee, I'm going to go to Dixon, Middle Tennessee, and then the next weekend is Nashville. So I'll be back and forth, but that's okay. I would love to stay the whole week, but these little fur babies, I don't think would let me do that. So anyway, but
And come stay here.
I know. Wouldn't that be fun? But anyway, so we'll see. But I want to thank you as always. You're full of information and you have some unique. And the meal piece, that's something I didn't know about, like these grams. I think that's awesome. The
Yeah.
more info I can give to people when they come in. So, but I love you and I appreciate all you do. And thank you for my colorway. And we'll see each other very soon, I'm sure.
So excited.
All right, my love. Talk to
Thanks.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye.